I found my CEO sleeping on my porch at almost midnight, and for a second, I thought I was too tired to be seeing straight. The porch swing moved a little in the cold wind, and there was a shape on it that did not belong to my quiet street. My house sits at the end of Maple Street, the kind of place with cracked sidewalks and old trees that lift the concrete. People here still have real porches, not just steps. Mine is small, built with my own hands, and it has always felt safe. Until that night, I had just pulled into the driveway after another long day at work. The Harmon project had been grinding everyone down, and Margaret Vane had been harder than ever. Every detail had to be perfect. Every mistake felt like a personal failure. I was looking forward to leftovers in silence. Then, my headlights swept over the porch, and I saw her. At first, I thought it was some kid from the neighborhood. Maybe drunk. Maybe lost. I turned off the engine and sat there, my hand on my phone, debating if I should call someone. I was exhausted, and my back ached, and I did not want trouble. But the shape did not move. So I got out of the car and called out, asking if they were okay. She lifted her head, and even under the weak porch light, I knew that face, the sharp chin, the straight nose, the posture that never fully disappeared. Margaret Vane, my boss, the CEO. The woman whose name opened doors and closed budgets. She was sitting on my porch swing, shivering in a thin coat, with a small broken suitcase at her feet. I said her name without thinking, and rushed up the steps. Her makeup was smeared. Her eyes were red. She looked nothing like the woman who ran boardrooms full of men twice her age. She looked small. She looked scared. She grabbed my wrist when I reached for my phone. Her hand was ice cold. She begged me not to call anyone. No police. No assistance. No one at all. She said my name like it was an anchor, like if she said it enough times, she would not fall apart. I asked her what happened, and she laughed in a way that made my chest tighten. She said she could not go back to her penthouse. She said it was too big for one person. Then she looked away and told me the locks had been changed that morning. I did not ask questions right then. I just unlocked the door and held it open. I watched Margaret Vane pick up her broken suitcase and walk into my house like she had nowhere else in the world to go. My living room is nothing special. An old couch from IKEA. A coffee table I made from a door. Books stacked on the floor because I never bought shelves. She stood there in her coat, shaking, like she did not know where to put herself. I told her to sit down and went to the kitchen to make tea, even though I was not sure why tea felt like the right answer. My kitchen is small, barely enough room to turn around. I put the kettle on and stared at the wall, trying to understand how my life had shifted so fast. Margaret Vane was in my living room. The woman who lived in a glass tower downtown with a doorman and a rooftop garden. The woman who never waited for anything or anyone. When I brought her the tea, she took the mug with both hands and drank like she needed the heat to survive. We sat in silence, the radiator clanking, a dog barking somewhere outside. Normal sounds that felt strange with her sitting there. She finally told me she had lost everything, not with drama, not with tears, but like she was reading a report. She told me about her business partner, about money disappearing, about using her own savings to keep the firm alive. She said she had been sleeping in the office for weeks, showering at the gym, pretending it was all fine. I felt sick listening to her. I thought about all the mornings I had seen her at her desk before sunrise and assumed she was just dedicated. I never imagined she had nowhere to go. She said she had designed homes her whole life but did not have one of her own. She looked around my living room like it mattered, like it was something rare. She told me she had seen my porch months ago and thought about it more than she wanted to admit. I did not know what to say, so I went back to the kitchen and started cooking with whatever I had. Eggs, bread, cheese. She watched me like the act itself meant something. When she took the first bite, her eyes filled with tears. Quiet ones this time. She said she could not remember the last time someone cooked for her. That night, when I offered her my guest room, she hesitated, like accepting it might break her pride for good. But she stayed. And as I lay awake in my bed later, listening to the house settle, I knew nothing about my life was going to stay the same after this. I did not sleep much that night. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the old house make its usual sounds. The soft knock of pipes, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint footsteps from the guest room when Margaret shifted in her sleep. Every sound reminded me she was really here. Not a dream. Not a story I would tell someone later. My CEO was asleep in my house. Around 3 in the morning, I gave up on sleep. I got out of bed and sat at the small desk in the corner of my room. It was cluttered with sketches, notes, and folders I had been pretending not to see for months. Plans I had been quietly building while telling everyone I was just tired from work. I opened the folder I had hidden under a stack of books. The one that scared me the most. I had been planning to leave Vane Interiors. Not just leave, but start something of my own. A small firm. Honest work. Real homes for real people. I had numbers written in the margins, names of classmates I trusted, notes from meetings with a loan officer I had not told anyone about. It felt risky and impossible, which was exactly why I had not shared it. And sitting there in the dark, thinking about Margaret sleeping on a futon in my guest room, something shifted. I realized how wrong my original plan was. I had been trying to run from something. From feeling small, from working under someone who felt untouchable. But now I had seen her break. I had seen her human. By the time the sky started to lighten, I had rewritten everything. I heard the shower turn on and smiled without meaning to. I made coffee using the good beans I saved for weekends. When Margaret came into the kitchen, her hair was still damp, and she was wearing my old t-shirt like it belonged to her. She looked younger, softer, less like armor, and more like a person who had finally set something heavy down. We sat at the table, steam rising from our mugs. She started talking about what she needed to do next. Bankruptcy, closing the firm, how to tell the staff. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook. I stopped her and slid the folder across the table. She opened it slowly, reading page by page. I watched her eyes change as the idea took shape in her mind. When she looked up, there was fear there, but also something else. Hope, maybe. Or curiosity. I told her I did not want Kellerman Associates. I told her I wanted to build something that mattered. I told her I could not do it alone. I needed her experience. Her name. Her vision. She said she could not let me throw away my future for her. She said she was broke. She said she would be a burden. I told her she was wrong. I told her she had already given everything to protect people like me, and this was not charity. This was partnership. She stood by the window for a long time, looking out at my messy backyard. When she finally turned back to me, she said yes in a voice that sounded like relief and fear mixed together. The next 2 days passed in a blur. We talked non-stop, at the table, on the couch, late into the night, about projects we would take and projects we would refuse, about how we wanted people to feel when they walked into a home we designed, about mistakes we would never repeat. She told me stories from her early career. I told her why I bought this house instead of a condo downtown. Every conversation peeled back another layer. Thursday morning, she tried to make breakfast and burned the toast. I walked in to find her crying over it, wearing my old college hoodie like it was armor she did not know how to wear yet. It hit me then how fragile this new version of her was. How brave! I showed her how to work the broken toaster. She laughed when it finally came out right. A small laugh, unsure, but real. We ate together, talking about the first proposal we needed to send out, about meeting with Mitchell Crane, about how strange it felt to plan a future instead of hiding from one. At one point, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand, just once. Quick, like she was embarrassed she needed it. I squeezed back. For the first time since I had met her, Margaret was not in control, and somehow that made her closer to me than she had ever been. I did not know where this would lead. I did not know if we would fail. But I knew one thing with painful clarity. She was not just my boss anymore, and I was not just her employee. Something else was starting here, in this small kitchen, with burnt toast and borrowed clothes, and two people who had both decided they were done pretending. By Friday, the house no longer felt like it was mine alone. Margaret moved carefully through it, like she was afraid of breaking something. But her presence settled in anyway. Her suitcase stayed by the guest room door, still half-packed, like she did not trust the ground under her yet. I told her she could put things away. She smiled and said, maybe tomorrow. We turned my living room into a temporary office. The coffee table became a desk covered in papers, laptops, and sketchbooks. We pushed the couch back to make space. Every morning started with coffee and quiet, and then the day slowly filled with ideas. Real ones, not the kind that lived only in meetings and slides. Watching Margaret work like this was different. There was no performance, no sharp tone meant to impress or intimidate. She sketched with her sleeves rolled up, hair pulled back, humming softly when something clicked. She asked my opinion and actually waited for the answer. Sometimes she would stop and laugh at herself, saying she forgot what it felt like to enjoy the work. That was when I realized how lonely she must have been for years. On Saturday, we met Mitchell Crane at a small cafe downtown. No assistants, no formal suits. Margaret wore a simple coat and flats. I could tell she was nervous by the way she held her cup, but when she started talking about design, she lit up. Mitchell leaned in, asked questions, challenged ideas. By the end, he agreed to give us the brownstone project. When we walked back to the car, Margaret stopped on the sidewalk and stared at the building across the street like she needed to catch her breath. We actually did it, she said. We did, I said. She laughed, then covered her mouth like she could not believe the sound came from her. She hugged me without thinking. It lasted only a second, but it stayed with me the rest of the day. That night, we ordered takeout and ate on the floor because the table was buried under plans. We talked about names for the firm and argued in the easy way people do when they feel safe. She told me about the first apartment she ever lived in after college. I told her about the night I slept in my car before buying this house because I was afraid of debt. There were moments when the air between us changed. Small ones. Lingering looks. A pause that felt heavier than it should. Neither of us said anything about it. It felt too fragile to name. Late Sunday evening, the power went out during a storm. The house went quiet except for rain hitting the windows. I lit candles, and we sat on the couch, closer than we needed to be, sharing one blanket because the heater was off. She told me she was scared, not of failing, but of succeeding and losing herself again. I told her I was scared too, of wanting something that might ruin what we were building. She looked at me then, really looked, and I felt the weight of it. The CEO was gone in that moment. So was the employee. It was just two people sitting in the dark, trying to decide what they were allowed to want. She rested her head on my shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. I did not move. My heart felt loud in my chest. When the power came back on, neither of us said anything. She stood up, cleared her throat, and said she was tired. That night, sleep came even harder. The next morning, she told me she found a small apartment listing. Temporary, she said. Just until things stabilized. The idea hit harder than I expected. I nodded and told her that made sense. But the house felt quieter the rest of the day, even with her still in it. I started to wonder if this was all it would ever be. Two people standing on the edge of something, too careful to step forward. And I did not know which scared me more, losing the firm we were building, or losing her. She did not move out right away. The apartment listing stayed open on her laptop for days, but something always came up. Another call, another sketch, another decision that needed both of us. The suitcase stayed by the door, untouched. We stopped pretending it was temporary. Work took over in the best way. The brownstone project filled our days and our nights. We argued about stair placement and window light. We rewrote budgets. We met contractors who looked surprised when Margaret showed up without an assistant, and even more surprised when she laughed at their jokes. This version of her disarmed people. They trusted her. I trusted her. Somewhere in the middle of all that, the lines blurred completely. She started making coffee in the mornings without asking. I started fixing things around the house without thinking about it. We fell into a rhythm that felt dangerous because it felt right. Too right. One night we were up late finalizing drawings. The house was quiet, the only sound the scratch of pencils and the soft music playing from my phone. She leaned over to look at my sketch, her arm brushing mine. Neither of us moved away. "You ever think about how strange this is?" she asked softly. "All the time." She nodded. "I mean, us. This." She looked around the room. "A week ago I did not even have a key to this place. And now? And now it feels like home," she said before she could stop herself. The word hung between us. Home. She stood up quickly, said she was tired, and disappeared into the guest room. I stayed on the couch long after the music stopped, staring at nothing, knowing I could not keep pretending I did not feel this. The next morning she told me the apartment was gone. Someone else took it. Her voice was neutral, but her eyes searched my face like she was waiting for my reaction. "Okay," I said. "We will find another." She hesitated. "Or maybe we do not rush." That was the moment everything cracked open. We did not talk about it right away. We worked, we laughed, we avoided the obvious until it became impossible to ignore. It came out one quiet evening while we were washing dishes together, our hands bumping in the sink. "Caden," she said, barely above a whisper, "this is crossing lines. I know. I do not want to hurt you. You will not." She turned to face me, water still running, eyes full of fear and honesty. "I have spent my whole life being careful, powerful, alone. I do not know how to do this without ruining it." I reached out, not touching her yet. Neither do I. But I know I do not want to pretend this is not here. She closed her eyes for a second, then leaned into me like she had been holding herself upright for too long. I wrapped my arms around her, and she exhaled, a sound full of release. The kiss was slow, careful, like we were both afraid of breaking something fragile. When we pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine and smiled the smallest smile I had ever seen on her face. "So this is what choosing looks like," she said. "Yeah," I said. "I think it is." We took everything else just as slowly. The firm grew, small at first, then steady. The brownstone project led to another, then another. People started talking about us, about the honesty of our work, about how the homes felt lived in before anyone even moved in. Margaret never went back to a penthouse. She said she did not miss the echo. She stayed. The suitcase finally got unpacked. The guest room turned into a real office. The porch swing got fixed when one of the chains snapped. Sometimes I catch her standing on the porch in the evenings, coffee in hand, watching the street. When I ask what she is thinking about, she smiles, and says she cannot believe she almost missed this. The penthouse really was too big for one person. This house is not perfect. Neither are we. But it is honest, and now it is ours. And that turned out to be everything.